I'm in a very happy place. Like right now, it's taken me my entire 20s, like so pretty much like 10 years. I'm 31 now, so it's taken me many years to really reset all the conditioning patterns of my thought. You know, when I was a kid, like I didn't have any understanding of like personal development or of becoming, you know, developing skills beyond like the usual like 9 to 5, like just go and work and then, you know, make enough to earn a paycheck and then pay your rent and then just live like that for decades, right? And so now I've crafted myself into a person who is okay and has accepted everything that has happened in her past and the people in it, and I choose to be happy now. So I feel like every day is in very perfect alignment with what the universe has ordained for me. And that might sound like, you know, some freaking like cult-like Scientology or like Catholic. Like I grew up Catholic, so it might have like little undercurrents of that. But honestly, like from when I kind of reflect back on like things that happened yesterday or things like throughout my life, especially the last 3 to 4 years, I find that they have all been almost like magic in helping me become like a much more empowered, stronger, and happier person. I would say that I'm just living out what I was meant to live out. Like my time on this earth, I don't know if when I'm gonna die, or if I'm gonna reach old age, or if I'm gonna die tomorrow or in a couple of years, whatever. It doesn't even matter. I feel so at peace with everything. So I just feel like every day I'm realizing more and more and more of what I'm here to do. And so people who see me now, they may see like a really like bubbly, sort of like positive, like kind of like I have a bit of like I'm pretty blunt, so I'll just say whatever the fuck I want, right? And I wasn't always this way. Like when I was growing up, like my family is like a traditional, like, okay, maybe not traditional, but like a very average Chinese family where there's a lot of fighting and a lot of passive aggressiveness and a lot of anger and grudge holding and like not a very healthy place emotionally for kids to grow up in. And my parents had a lot of had a lot of conflict, and neither of them are very like empowered people. And I'm not here to bash them or anything like that. Like I love both of them, and they both had, you know, their own unique paths from which they came, right? They grew up, like my dad grew up like with a lot of poverty and like very little parenting. And back then, like, he's old now, he's like 71 now. So, you know, it wasn't like there was like an age of like, you know, everyone gets a star. Like, no, you're lucky if you went to school. And if you didn't go to school in Hong Kong, like in the 50s or 60s, like you're considered an outcast, right? And he didn't do well in school. So he developed a lot of insecurities, and he took it out on my mom. They start taking it out on me, right? And then this is super common. Like this isn't something that like only my family went through this. Like, no, I know this is something that like many families go through regardless of race or ethnicity or anything like that, right? And so growing up, I felt very very weak. Like I felt scared and weak and fearful, a lot of fear every day, right? Because you didn't know what to expect. Like every day, like, you know, like we'd had, like they'd fight, and then like my dad would force me to call the cops. And I'd call the cops, and I'd be like 8 years old. I'd call the cops, and I'd be like, hey, like my parents are having a fight. And he'd tell me what to say and be like, your mom is being like, she's trying to poison you. And like tell me to bash my mom on the phone to the cops, right? And so this was like years and years and years of this sort of like, you know, very abusive, like, you know, pretty traumatic, like lots of violence going on in the household. And so I knew I had a lot of warped conceptions about what a man is, what a woman is, what a parent is, how to be an individual and live in a society. Like all of these things I didn't understand, or I had a really messed up understanding of. And so I took it upon myself when I was in my early 20s to really start like working on that and understanding like my issues a little more deeply, and then to resolve them and to heal them, right? So now I would say, like, as I like, you know, go into my 30s, like I think now I finally kind of have a good healthy grasp of like how to be a person in a very like in different relationships, like how to be a partner and how to be a mother and how to be a father, right? All of these things. So my biggest struggle has been to undo all of the damaging conditioning that I experienced when I was a kid, and to be aware of them and to make peace with them, and not to hold any resentment against anybody, because they're just living their life the best way they know how, right? And to make peace with it and to forgive, and then to work on myself regardless of where I came from. Yeah, there were a few. There were a few that were definitely very harsh, I would say. So like my parents were pretty poor, didn't have a car, so we'd bus everywhere. And then like my dad, for some reason, he's just like to like really like fuck you, you know? He'd be like on Christmas or on someone's birthday, he'd like start a fight like as hard as he could. So I remember one time we would go to the Holy Rosary Cathedral on Dunsmuir in downtown, and then Mass on Christmas, it starts at like so late, like at midnight, and then so you like get home at like 3. And so after Mass, it's like about 2 hours long, because it's like, oh, we have to name all the saints or whatever. And then went to go eat somewhere, and it's late, and then he starts a fight with my mom. I think it was Tim Hortons. It's fucking Tim Hortons, because where else is open at 2:30 in the morning on Christmas? So he started a fight, and then he got up, and my mom left, and then he addressed everybody in the restaurant. And me and my sister are just like, this is so embarrassing. You know, it's like having a father who, I don't want to say stuff like that, but it's just like someone that you trust, that you think you can trust, or that you thought you could trust, someone that's supposed to protect you and, you know, guide you, is someone who is exposing you to some of like the most traumatic experiences of your life. And he didn't ever like drink. He didn't have money to drink. But his addiction was to like negative, self-victimizing beliefs. And that, even though no one really can see it or talk about it really, like it's definitely there, and it's very pervasive, and it's very harmful. Like the time when he called the cops, and then I honestly blocked out a lot of these memories. But then that was after he was like grabbing my mom by her hair and then like swinging her around on the living room floor. I think I was like 9 or 10 at this point, like swinging her around, and she's like screaming, and she's like small, she's like 5'1", and so just like dragging her around. And I can't remember if there was blood, but then we had the cops come pretty soon after that. So that's just something, yeah. So when I look back on my life, I'm blown away, honestly. Like I grew up in an immigrant family with very little money. Like we would eat 99-cent pizza after church. Like, you know, it was like we couldn't afford to go and eat meals like out, and my dad didn't really let my mom cook, so it was like just a very disempowered kind of like household to live in. But anyway, but now, you know, after, you know, however many years, now I can say like I'm a business owner. I just bought my first condo, and I did it all on my own. I saved up and hustled and worked 7 days a week for a couple of years to make that kind of money, put 20% down. I did a couple of bodybuilding shows as a vegan athlete just a couple months ago, and I got second place and I got third place at the Van Pro qualifier. And I'm scheduled to speak at the first Veg Fest event at Capilano University in a couple of weeks. And you know, I'm just making a name for myself. And this name isn't a name where it's like, oh, like, you know, you're a hoe or you're a stripper or something like that. This is like, no, you know what? Like, this is me making things out of my own hands. Like, it's like I went from being, you know, a little girl who didn't know any better, like calling the cops when she was like 8 years old because like her dad was like trying to start shit, you know. And now here, like, it's taken me a few years. I'm 31, but then, I mean, you know, you never know how life may turn out, and you never know who you're gonna come across, right? So my greatest, like, my piece of advice, if you're gonna take one thing away from this, is to just appreciate everything you have, and then to look for opportunities to get you out of where you are.